Morning again, Jono.
Morning, Steve.
We are talking today about structure at Connetics, and then we're going to talk a wee bit about the culture at Connetics as well.
Perfect.
So, would you say that the management structure at Connetics is flat or tall?
I think I'd probably describe ours as flat. We certainly have a tiered sort of hierarchy structure, but I think flat is the way to describe it because we have an organisation structure that has typical hierarchy, one CEO, 5 or 6 corporate managers. Each of those corporate managers have 3 or 4 reports, but then underneath that, those people have 20 or 30 reports. So it sort of flattens out quite quickly. So I think that's probably where we are as an organisation.
Okay, and why have you chosen flat as opposed to hierarchical and tall?
I think probably to do with communication and decision making. I think probably the 2 key things for us. Flat allows you to push, I believe, allows you to push communication through the business easier because you're disseminating messages quite quickly through a tiered structure. And then, of course, when you get to a certain level, like that layer that has 20 or 30 in it, those people are all operating at very similar levels and want the same communication message and structure. Plus also decision making. I think with a flat structure, you're able to anchor your decision making to levels within the organisation, and that's the way we do it.
And as far as decision making goes, do you have one key group of people making all the decisions, or are you quite decentralised?
I would say in general for day-to-day management of this organisation, we're decentralised. I think if you for probably what I'd call strategic decisions, there's quite a centralised group. All strategic decisions in this organisation, such as growing the business, major asset purchases, large employment issues, etc., are done by the what I call the corporate team, which is my role and my direct reports. But generally, our decision making is decentralised because that allows decisions to be made at the right time, at the right spot. We manage that decentralisation with quite a strong delegated level of authority policy, which means that each level of the organisation has the ability to make financial decisions up to a certain level, i.e. I have a level that says I can spend up to $500,000 without having to get authority.
Nice.
My managers have 100,000, their managers have 50, their managers below that have 20, therefore they can make day-to-day decisions about the organisation without having to have the challenge of getting upward decision making all the time. However, if it goes above $500,000 for me, I have to ask my board, and what they want some pretty good clear evidence if I'm going to write a cheque out for more than $500,000, although it's quite a lot of fun writing a cheque out.
I can imagine.
Don't do it personally very often.
No, I haven't been there.
No.
Okay, now, do you organise yourselves by function or geography, or are you kind of like a matrix?
I think up until very recently we've been all functional, whereas we have an operations group, we have a supply and logistics group, and we have a design and engineering group. And within those, the operations group then splits into functions of underground services work, power line work, things like that. So we're very functional in that space. Recently we've expanded into Wellington, and we've got an operation up there with 20 staff. That is going to be managed geographically because it just doesn't have the size to be able to support a functional structure. In time, if we get that bigger, we'll probably move into functional. The only matrix side of it we have is we run a centralised corporate services division, which is things like HR and accounting and IT, and they offer services across all of the functions. So I would say we are predominantly functionally, but we do have aspects of geographic and matrix as required.
Yeah, and that geographic will grow as Connetics grows nationally.
Yeah, absolutely, geographic, and then it depends. If we become as big in Wellington as we are in Christchurch, then we'll probably have a functional structure in Wellington. So it's a size thing, I think, that drives that. But I think that our corporate services, IT and HR, will always be based in Christchurch and support our geographic business as well. So it's sort of a complicated mix of the two, but I would say functional is the way I'd summarise it.
Okay, just flipping over now to the culture at Connetics.
Yes.
What I'm really interested in is, could you describe what sort of culture Connetics has, and how have they developed that culture, and have you got evidence that it's working and it's strong?
Yeah, okay. It's a really interesting question actually about cultures because people always ask, people often ask, what's the culture there? My view at Connetics is the culture is that we've got a job to do and we get it done. We work in an industry that people need our help. We often, what I'd say is that we work in an industry where people only ring you when the power's off. They don't really ring you when the power's on. and tell you what a wonderful job we're doing because they were able to turn the light bulb on this morning. They ring you because they've got a problem and it's our job to get out there and fix it. And our guys are programmed like that. They've got a real social responsibility, and I think more than ever that was evidenced during the earthquake response. I mean, these guys were under enormous pressure with their own homes were broken, their families were scared, wanting to leave town, but I don't think a single one of them stood back from their responsibility of getting out there and reinstating power to other people, despite the fact their own house was in turmoil. They were making sure that other people could live. So that's the evidence I see it. Do we work on it and make it happen? It's a tricky one. It all comes down to leadership, culture. My view is that the culture will be driven by what they see me doing, what they see my managers doing, and their managers doing. They need to be out there doing it as well. My first and foremost responsibility is to make sure that Connetics does a good job, and they see that. They need to see me doing that. If I allow the standards to drop, then should they expect it to be doing it as well? So we don't physically have a program to make sure we work on culture, because I don't think that actually happens. Culture is driven by what people see in the halls, not what's written on the walls.
Yeah. Yeah, have you got some examples of, I guess you're talking about written on the walls, like mission and vision?
Yeah, every organisation has their vision and values written up on the wall, but I think the things that I see is things like health and safety standards are massive for us, and we go by a slogan that says the standard you walk by is the standard you set. So if I'm out there or a manager's out there and he walks past a site and health and safety isn't being properly observed, if we don't do anything about that, then we're condoning that that's okay. And so that's what the guys will learn from. So we have plenty of opportunities where we'll say, even me who doesn't have a massive technical knowledge of electrical, I'll stop a site and say, look, we can't be operating this unsafely, let's tidy the site up, let's put our traffic management back up the way it should be, and things like that. So I have to do that, because if I don't, the guys are saying, well, the boss doesn't mind if it's wrong, so why should we care?
Yeah. Yep, that's excellent, Jono.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the interview.
My pleasure.